The rain fell softly on Elena's black dress as she stood at the back of the crowd, watching her mother's coffin being lowered into the ground. She wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. Maybe it was because she had cried so much already. Or maybe it was because she could feel everyone staring at her with those same looks she had seen her whole life. The looks that said she didn't belong. Elena pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders. At 22 years old, she was the only person in the Crescent Moon Pack who couldn't shift into wolf form. While other children had celebrated their first transformation at 16, Elena had waited and hoped. Years passed and nothing happened. No wolf spirit awakened inside her. No powerful howl escaped her throat. She remained completely human while living in a world of werewolves. There she is, someone whispered behind her. The wolfless girl. I heard her mother was ashamed of her, another voice added. Elena's heart clenched, but she kept her eyes on the grave. Her mother, Isabella, had never been ashamed of her. Isabella had been the only person who treated Elena like she mattered. She had been the pack's healer, respected by everyone, and she had loved Elena completely despite her lack of wolf abilities. Now Isabella was gone, and Elena felt more alone than ever. The pack leader stepped forward to speak about Isabella's service to the community. Elena barely listened. She was thinking about what would happen to her now. Her stepfather, Beta Vincent, had made it clear that he only tolerated Elena because of her mother. Her half-sister Lydia had always treated Elena like an unwanted pest. Without Isabella's protection, Elena knew her time in the pack was ending. As if reading her thoughts, Beta Vincent's voice cut through the ceremony. Before we finish honoring Isabella's memory, I have an announcement. Elena's stomach dropped. She could see the cruel satisfaction in Vincent's eyes as he looked directly at her. As you all know, Isabella's daughter Elena has lived among us despite her condition. Out of respect for Isabella, I allowed this. But now that Isabella has passed, I see no reason to continue supporting someone who cannot contribute to our pack's strength. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Elena felt her face burn with shame and anger. How dare Vincent do this at her mother's funeral? But she wasn't surprised. Vincent had always resented that Isabella's first husband, Elena's father, had died in battle before Elena was born. Vincent had married Isabella but never truly accepted Elena as his daughter. Elena Matthews, Vincent continued, his voice carrying across the cemetery. You have until tomorrow morning to leave Crescent Moon territory. You are no longer welcome here. The words hit Elena like physical blows. Leave? Where would she go? She had no money, no other family, no pack that would accept a wolfless person. Some packs killed rogues on sight, especially weak ones who couldn't defend themselves. Lydia stepped closer to her father, a satisfied smirk on her pretty face. At 19, Lydia was everything Elena wasn't. Strong, confident, and blessed with a beautiful silver wolf form. She had been waiting for this moment for years. It's for the best, Lydia said loud enough for others to hear. She's just taking up resources that could go to real pack members. Elena's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to scream, to fight back, to prove them all wrong. But what could she do? She was exactly what they said she was, powerless and alone. Just as Elena turned to walk away from her mother's grave forever, the sound of car engines filled the air. Everyone looked toward the cemetery entrance where 3 sleek black vehicles had arrived. The cars were expensive, the kind that powerful people drove. The crowd grew quiet, sensing that something important was happening. The door of the middle car opened and a man stepped out. Elena had never seen him before, but she could immediately tell he was an alpha. Everything about him radiated power and control. He was tall with dark hair, and the kind of presence that made people step back without realizing why. His clothes were perfectly fitted, and he moved with the confident grace of someone who had never been challenged and won. But it was his eyes that made Elena's breath catch. They were an unusual silver color, almost like looking at moonlight on water, and those eyes were scanning the crowd as if searching for something specific. The pack members began whispering among themselves. Who was this man? What pack did he represent? Why was he here at Isabella's funeral? Beta Vincent stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable but trying to maintain his authority. I am Beta Vincent of the Crescent Moon Pack. How can we help you? The stranger's gaze finally found Elena, and she felt a strange jolt of recognition, though she was certain they had never met. His silver eyes seemed to see right through her, past all the shame and rejection she carried. For a moment, the noise of the crowd faded away, and Elena felt like she was the only person in the world who mattered to this mysterious man. "I am Kieran Blackwood," the man said, his deep voice carrying easily across the cemetery. "Alpha of the Shadow Ridge Pack." Elena heard several people gasp. Shadow Ridge was legendary, the most powerful pack in the entire region. Their alpha was said to be ruthless in battle and absolutely fair in judgment. Stories about Kieran Blackwood were told around campfires, but Elena had never imagined she would see him in person. "I've come to pay my respects to Isabella Matthews," Kieran continued, his eyes never leaving Elena. "She was a remarkable woman who once saved my life." This was news to everyone, including Elena. Her mother had never mentioned knowing the Alpha of Shadow Ridge. Isabella had told Elena stories about her time as a healer, but she had never mentioned working with other packs. Beta Vincent looked confused and slightly threatened by Kieran's presence. "Of course, Alpha Blackwood. Isabella was indeed a valued member of our community. Though I'm afraid the ceremony is ending and we were just discussing family matters." "Yes," Kieran said quietly, taking a step closer to Elena. "I believe we need to discuss those family matters very carefully." Elena felt her heart racing. Why was this powerful alpha looking at her like she was the most important person at the funeral? Why did she feel like her entire life was about to change in ways she couldn't understand? The crowd watched in stunned silence as Kieran walked directly toward Elena, stopping just a few feet away from her. Up close, she could see that his silver eyes held kindness along with their strength. When he looked at her, she didn't see the disgust or pity she was used to. She saw something that looked almost like relief. "Elena Matthews," Kieran said softly, though his voice carried to everyone present. "I've been looking for you for a very long time." Elena's mind reeled. Looking for her? That was impossible. She was nobody special, just a wolfless girl that even her own pack wanted to throw away. Yet here stood the most powerful alpha in the territory, speaking to her like she mattered. As the first drops of evening rain began to fall harder, Elena realized that everything she thought she knew about her life was about to be completely turned upside down. Standing there in the cemetery where they had just buried the only person who had ever loved her, Elena was about to discover that her story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Elena's heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The cemetery had gone completely silent except for the gentle patter of rain on leaves. Every pack member stood frozen, staring at the scene unfolding before them. The most powerful alpha in the territory was standing in front of their worthless, wolfless reject, speaking to her like she was someone important. "I don't understand," Elena whispered, her voice barely audible. "You've been looking for me? But I'm nobody. I don't even have a wolf." Kieran's silver eyes softened, and for a moment Elena saw something that looked like sadness flash across his face. "You are far from nobody, Elena. You are exactly who I thought you were the moment I saw you." Beta Vincent stepped forward, his face flushed with anger and confusion. "Now wait just a minute, Alpha Blackwood. I don't know what game you're playing, but Elena is nothing special. She's wolfless, weak, and frankly a burden to any pack. If you're here to mock us, I suggest you choose your next words very carefully," Kieran said without taking his eyes off Elena. His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath that made Vincent take an involuntary step backward. "Because what I'm about to say will change everything." The crowd pressed closer, sensing drama. Elena wished she could disappear into the ground. Whatever was happening, she was going to be the center of attention, and that never ended well for her. Kieran reached into his jacket and pulled out an ornate silver medallion that gleamed even in the dim light. Elena gasped. She recognized it immediately. Her mother had worn an identical medallion for as long as Elena could remember. Isabella had always said it was a family heirloom, but she had never explained what the intricate wolf and moon design meant. "This belonged to your mother when she lived in my pack 15 years ago," Kieran said, holding up the medallion. "She was our healer, and she saved my life during the Great Territory War. When she left, I promised I would find her again someday." Elena felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Her mother had lived in Shadow Ridge? Why had Isabella never told her this? And why had she left such a powerful pack to come to the much smaller Crescent Moon territory? "That's impossible," Vincent sputtered. "Isabella came to us as a young widow. She never mentioned living anywhere else." "Perhaps," Kieran said calmly. Isabella had her reasons for keeping certain things private, but I'm not here to discuss the past. I'm here because of Elena. He turned back to Elena, and she felt that strange pull again, like something deep inside her was responding to his presence. It was the first time in her life that she had felt anything that might be her wolf stirring, though she barely dared to hope. Elena, Kieran said, his voice gentle but carrying absolute authority. Under the ancient laws that govern all packs, I am here to claim you as my mate. The words exploded through the crowd like a bomb. Elena heard Lydia gasp, Vincent curse under his breath, and several pack members start talking at once. But Elena herself felt like time had stopped completely. Mate? Her, the wolfless girl that nobody wanted? That's ridiculous, Lydia shrieked, pushing through the crowd to stand next to her father. She can't be anyone's mate. She doesn't even have a wolf. How could someone like her be matched with an alpha? Elena flinched at her half-sister's words, but Kieran's expression hardened as he looked at Lydia. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes in her pairings. Elena is my mate whether she has shifted or not. But she's worthless, Vincent protested. Alpha Blackwood, surely you can see that this girl has nothing to offer a pack like yours. She can't fight, can't hunt, can't even communicate with other wolves properly. I was just telling her to leave our territory because she's such a burden. Elena wanted to run. All her worst fears about herself were being laid out in front of the most important person she had ever met. Kieran would surely realize his mistake and leave her here to face Vincent's punishment for wasting his time. But instead of agreeing with Vincent, Kieran's eyes flashed with anger. Are you suggesting that I don't know my own mate when I see her? The temperature around them seemed to drop several degrees. Elena could feel the power radiating from Kieran, and she finally understood why he was feared throughout the territory. This was an alpha in his full authority, and Vincent had just made a serious mistake by questioning him. Of course not, Alpha Blackwood, Vincent said quickly, but his voice shook. I just think perhaps there's been some confusion. There is no confusion, Kieran said firmly. Elena is my mate, and I am claiming her under pack law. Does anyone here challenge my right to do so? Elena looked around at the crowd. These were people who had known her all her life, who had watched her struggle and fail to find her wolf year after year. Now they were being told that she was destined to be with the most powerful alpha in the region. None of them looked happy about it. Even if what you say is true, Vincent said carefully, Elena is still a member of my pack. She can't just leave without proper arrangements. She was just banished, Kieran pointed out. Or did I misunderstand what I heard when I arrived? Vincent's face turned red. He had been caught in his own trap. He couldn't claim Elena was a valuable pack member worth keeping when he had just publicly thrown her out. Elena found her voice at last. Alpha Blackwood, she said quietly. I don't understand any of this. Why would the moon goddess pair someone like you with someone like me? Everyone's right, I am wolfless. I can't offer you anything that a real wolf could. Kieran stepped closer to her, close enough that she could smell his scent, something wild and clean like pine forests and mountain air. When he spoke, his voice was so gentle that only she could hear. Elena, do you trust your mother's judgment? Of course, Elena said immediately. Isabella had been the wisest person she knew. Then trust that she knew exactly what she was doing when she brought you into this world. You are not a mistake and you are not worthless. You are exactly who you were meant to be. Something in his voice made Elena want to believe him, but a lifetime of rejection was hard to overcome. But what if you're wrong? What if you realize I really am just a burden? Kieran smiled then, the first real smile Elena had seen from him, and it transformed his entire face. Elena, I have been searching for you for 15 years. I am not wrong about who you are. Before Elena could ask what he meant by that, Lydia stepped forward again, her pretty face twisted with jealousy and rage. This is insane, Lydia shouted. If anyone should be claimed by an alpha, it should be me. I'm strong, I'm beautiful, I have a perfect wolf form. Not her! Kieran barely glanced at Lydia. The moon goddess chooses mates based on souls, not appearances or abilities. Elena is mine and I am hers. That is the end of this discussion. Elena felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but for the first time in years, they weren't tears of sadness. Someone was fighting for her. Someone powerful and important was telling the world that she mattered. What happens now? Elena asked. Now, Kieran said, offering her his hand. You come home with me, if you're willing. Elena looked at his outstretched hand. then at the crowd of pack members who had spent her entire life making her feel small and unwanted. For once in her life, she had a choice. She could stay here and face Vincent's anger, or she could trust this mysterious alpha who claimed she was his mate. Taking a deep breath, Elena placed her hand in Kieran's. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong, and she felt that strange stirring inside her again, stronger this time. "I'm willing," she said. As they walked toward his car together, Elena heard the crowd erupting in shocked conversations behind them. She didn't look back. For the first time in her life, she was walking toward something instead of running away from it. But deep in her heart, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that Kieran was keeping secrets about her mother, about her past, and maybe even about what she really was. As they drove away from the only home she had ever known, Elena wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life, or if her real life was finally about to begin. The Shadow Ridge estate was nothing like Elena had imagined. As their car wound up the mountain road, she pressed her face to the window, staring at the sprawling complex of buildings nestled among ancient pine trees. The main house looked like something from a fairy tale, all stone and timber with warm lights glowing in every window. She could see other buildings scattered throughout the property, and in the distance, the silhouettes of pack members moving about their evening routines. "It's beautiful," Elena whispered. Kieran glanced at her from the driver's seat. He had insisted on driving himself rather than having his security team do it, saying he wanted to talk to Elena privately. "Your mother always loved this place. She said it felt like home from the moment she arrived." Elena turned to look at him. During the drive, Kieran had been mostly quiet, giving her time to process everything that had happened. But now they were almost to his territory, and Elena was bursting with questions. "Will you tell me about her? About why she was here and why she left?" Kieran's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "Yes, you deserve to know everything. But let's get you settled first. It's been a difficult day." They pulled up to the main house where several pack members were waiting. Elena felt a familiar twist of anxiety in her stomach. New people meant new opportunities for rejection and disappointment. But as she stepped out of the car, something surprising happened. "Welcome home, Elena," said an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. "I'm Dorothy, the head of household here. Your mother spoke of you often." Elena blinked in surprise. "She did?" "Oh yes, dear. Isabella visited us several times over the years, always asking Kieran to check on you from a distance. She was so proud of the young woman you were becoming." This was news to Elena. Her mother had been in contact with Shadow Ridge all these years. Why hadn't Isabella ever told her? Kieran placed a gentle hand on Elena's back, guiding her toward the house. "Dorothy will show you to your room. Rest. Get something to eat and then we'll talk." Elena's room was larger than the entire cabin she had shared with her mother back in Crescent Moon territory. It had a fireplace, a sitting area, and a window that looked out over the forest. Someone had already brought her few belongings from Vincent's house. Apparently, Kieran had sent people to collect her things while they were driving. After a warm bath and a meal that Dorothy insisted on bringing to her room, Elena felt more human than she had in days. When a soft knock came at her door, she opened it to find Kieran holding 2 cups of tea. "May I come in?" he asked. Elena nodded, suddenly nervous. Now that they were alone and she had time to think, the reality of her situation was hitting her. She was in a strange place with a man she barely knew, who claimed to be her mate based on laws she didn't understand. Kieran seemed to sense her nervousness. He settled into the chair across from her sitting area rather than joining her on the couch, giving her space. "Ask me anything," he said simply. Elena took a sip of her tea, gathering her courage. "How did you know my mother?" Kieran was quiet for a long moment, staring into his cup. When he looked up, Elena saw old pain in his silver eyes. 15 years ago, there was a war between several packs over territory rights. Shadow Ridge was attacked by 3 different packs at once. They had formed an alliance to try to take our lands. I was young then, barely 25, and I had only been alpha for 2 years after my father's death. Elena listened intently. She had never heard this story before. During the final battle, I was badly injured. Poisoned arrows, the kind that are deadly to our kind. I was dying and my pack's healer couldn't help me. That's when Isabella arrived. From where? Elena asked. We never found out exactly. She appeared in our territory during the fight like an angel of mercy. She had healing abilities I had never seen before. She could draw poison from wounds, heal internal damage, even bring someone back from the edge of death. She saved not just me, but dozens of our warriors. Elena felt a surge of pride hearing about her mother's abilities. Isabella had been special, just like Elena had always believed. After the war ended, I asked her to stay as our permanent healer. She agreed, and for almost a year, she lived here. She became like family to all of us. Kieran's voice grew softer. She was already pregnant when she arrived, though she didn't start showing until she had been here for several months. Pregnant with me, Elena said quietly. Yes. She never talked about your father, just said that he had been a good man who died protecting others. But Elena... Kieran leaned forward, his expression intense. Your mother wasn't just any healer. The things she could do were legendary. There are stories about healers with her abilities, but most people thought they were just myths. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of stories? Stories about wolves blessed by the moon goddess herself. Healers who could do more than just mend wounds. They could see the future, communicate with spirits, even awaken dormant powers in others. They were called moon-blessed, and they were said to appear only in times of great need. Elena shook her head. That's impossible. My mother was amazing, but she wasn't magical. And even if she was, I didn't inherit any of it. I can't even shift into a wolf, let alone heal anyone. Kieran set down his tea and moved to the couch, sitting close enough to take Elena's hands in his. His touch sent that same strange tingling through her body that she had felt earlier. Elena, what if I told you that your inability to shift isn't because you're defective? What if it's because your wolf is so powerful that it needs special circumstances to awaken? Elena stared at him. I would say you're trying to make me feel better with pretty lies. Kieran smiled. Your mother said you would be stubborn about accepting your true nature. She warned me that you would fight against believing in yourself because of how you've been treated. You talked to my mother about me? Elena's voice rose in surprise. Elena, your mother didn't just disappear from our lives 15 years ago. She stayed in contact. She would visit several times a year, always in secret, always asking me to keep an eye on you from a distance. She was protecting you. Protecting me from what? Kieran's expression grew serious. From people who would use your abilities for their own gain, from those who would hurt you to get to your power, and from the truth about who your father really was. Elena felt her world tilting again. What about my father? Kieran was quiet for so long that Elena thought he might not answer. Finally he spoke. Your father wasn't just any warrior who died in battle. Elena, he was an alpha, a very powerful alpha from a bloodline that was thought to be extinct. Elena pulled her hands away from his, standing up abruptly. Stop, just stop. You're telling me fairy tales now. My mother would have told me if my father was an alpha. Would she? Kieran asked gently. Think about it, Elena. If you were the daughter of a legendary bloodline, if you carried power that others would kill for, would your mother have risked your safety by telling you the truth? Or would she have hidden you away in a small pack where no one would think to look for you? Elena began pacing the room, her mind racing. Everything Kieran was saying was impossible, but it would explain so many things. Why her mother had always been secretive about the past. Why Isabella had sometimes looked at Elena with such sadness and worry. Why Elena had always felt like there was something missing inside her, something just out of reach. Even if any of this is true, Elena said, it doesn't change the fact that I'm wolfless. I've tried to shift thousands of times. Nothing happens. Kieran stood and walked to her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. Elena, what if your wolf isn't missing? What if she's just sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake up? Elena looked up into his silver eyes, wanting desperately to believe him but afraid to hope. How would you wake up a sleeping wolf? Kieran's smile was mysterious. With patience, the right guidance, and maybe a little help from someone who truly understands what you are. As if responding to his words, Elena felt that strange stirring inside her again, stronger than ever before. For just a moment she could swear she heard something like a wolf's whisper in the back of her mind. I'm scared, Elena admitted. I know, Kieran said softly, but you're not alone anymore. Your mother asked me to take care of you if anything ever happened to her. I promised her I would help you discover who you really are. Elena felt tears sliding down her cheeks. What if I'm not who you think I am? What if I disappoint you like I've disappointed everyone else? Kieran brushed away her tears with his thumbs. Elena, you could never disappoint me. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. Exactly when you're supposed to be here. Everything that has happened to you, every challenge you've faced has been preparing you for what comes next. What comes next? Elena whispered. Tomorrow we begin your real training. We're going to wake up your wolf, Elena. And when we do, I think you're going to be amazed by what you're truly capable of. As Elena fell asleep that night in the most comfortable bed she had ever known, she dreamed of silver light and ancient magic. Somewhere deep inside her, something was stirring to life. Elena woke before dawn with energy buzzing through her body like electricity. She had slept better than she had in years, but her dreams had been filled with strange images. Running through forests under moonlight, silver flames dancing around her hands, and the sound of a wolf howling that felt like it was coming from inside her own chest. When she looked in the mirror, Elena was startled to see that her brown eyes looked different. They seemed brighter somehow, with tiny flecks of silver that she had never noticed before. She rubbed her eyes, thinking it must be a trick of the morning light, but the silver flecks remained. A soft knock at her door interrupted her examination. Elena? Kieran's voice called. Are you awake? I'd like to start your training this morning if you're ready. Elena opened the door to find Kieran dressed in simple workout clothes, his dark hair slightly messy, like he had already been up for hours. He looked younger this way, less like the intimidating alpha from yesterday and more like someone she could actually talk to. I'm ready, Elena said, though she wasn't sure that was true. But I should warn you, I've tried to shift so many times over the years. I don't think anything you do will be different. Kieran smiled. We'll see about that. Dorothy has breakfast waiting for us, and then I want you to meet someone. The someone turned out to be an elderly man named Elder Thomas, who had bright blue eyes and a beard that reached his chest. He was waiting for them in a clearing deep in the forest, surrounded by ancient trees that seemed to whisper in the morning breeze. So this is Isabella's daughter, Elder Thomas said, studying Elena with those piercing blue eyes. Yes, I can see it now. The resemblance is quite strong. You knew my mother too? Elena asked. Child, I was the one who helped deliver you into this world, Elder Thomas said with a chuckle. Your mother came to me when her labor began, and I can tell you that your birth was unlike anything I had ever seen. Elena felt her cheeks warm. Unlike how? You were born during a lunar eclipse, Elder Thomas explained. The exact moment you took your first breath, the moon turned silver white in the sky. Your mother said it was a sign that you were destined for something special. Elena looked between Elder Thomas and Kieran. Everyone keeps telling me I'm special, but I still can't see any proof of it. That's because you've been trying to force your transformation, Kieran said. True shifting, especially for someone with your bloodline, isn't about forcing anything. It's about listening. Listening to what? To your wolf, Elder Thomas said. She's been trying to talk to you your whole life, but you've been so focused on what you can't do that you haven't been paying attention to what you can do. Elena frowned. I don't understand. Elder Thomas gestured for her to sit on a fallen log in the center of the clearing. Close your eyes, Elena. Stop thinking about shifting for a moment and just breathe. Elena did as he asked, though she felt a bit silly. She had tried meditation before and it had never helped her shift. Now, Elder Thomas continued, tell me what you hear. Birds, Elena said. The wind in the trees. A stream somewhere nearby. Good, what else? Elena listened more carefully. Insects buzzing. Leaves rustling. Something small moving through the underbrush. What do you feel? The sun on my face. The breeze. The rough bark of this log under my hands. And what do you smell? Elena inhaled deeply. Pine trees, flowers, rich earth, and... She paused, surprised. I can smell other wolves. Several of them, even though I can't see them. Elder Thomas and Kieran exchanged a look. Elena, Kieran said quietly, open your eyes. When Elena opened her eyes, she gasped. The clearing was full of wolves, at least a dozen pack members in their wolf forms watching her with curious eyes. They had been completely silent, and Elena shouldn't have been able to smell them from such a distance with a human nose. How did I? Elena started to ask. Your senses are already enhanced, Elder Thomas explained. They have been for years, probably. You just never realized it because you were so focused on what you couldn't do. Elena stood up, her mind racing. Now that she thought about it, she had always been able to hear things others couldn't. Smell scents that seemed too far away to detect. She had assumed everyone could do these things. That's just the beginning, Kieran said. Elena, I want you to try something different today. Instead of trying to shift your entire body, just try to let your wolf speak. I don't know how to do that. Yes, you do, Elder Thomas said gently. You've been holding conversations with your wolf your whole life. Every time you felt that stirring inside you, every time you sensed something others couldn't, that was your wolf trying to communicate. Stop blocking her out. Elena closed her eyes again, but this time she didn't try to force anything. Instead, she just listened to that feeling she had been having since she met Kieran, that sense of something powerful stirring deep inside her chest. And then she heard it. Faint at first, like an echo from far away, but definitely there. A voice that wasn't quite her own, but wasn't separate from her either. Finally, the voice said, "I've been waiting so long for you to listen." Elena's eyes snapped open. Did anyone else hear that? The wolves in the clearing began shifting back to human form, and Elena could see excitement on their faces. "Hear what?" Kieran asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "My wolf. She spoke to me. She said she's been waiting for me to listen." Elder Thomas clapped his hands together. "Excellent. Now, Elena, don't let go of that connection. Ask your wolf what she needs." Elena closed her eyes again, focusing on that inner voice. "What do you need?" "Trust," came the immediate response. "You need to trust that you are enough exactly as you are. You need to trust that I am here, that I have always been here. And you need to trust that we are powerful beyond anything these people have ever seen." Elena felt a warmth spreading through her body, starting in her chest and flowing outward. "Why couldn't I hear you before?" "Because you believed what they told you about being worthless. Because you thought being different meant being broken. Because you were afraid of what you might become if you let me out." The warmth was getting stronger now, and Elena could feel something changing in her body. Not the violent, painful shifting she had heard other wolves describe, but something gentler, like coming home after a long journey. "Are you ready?" her wolf asked. Elena thought about all the years of rejection and disappointment. She thought about her mother's secrets and her father's mysterious identity. She thought about Kieran's faith in her and Elder Thomas's patient guidance. Most of all, she thought about the pack members surrounding her, waiting to see what she would become. "I'm ready," Elena said. The transformation began slowly. Elena felt her senses sharpen even further, her hearing picking up conversations happening miles away. Her sense of smell became so acute that she could identify individual pack members by scent alone. Strength flowed into her muscles, making her feel like she could run for days without getting tired. But it was the light that made everyone gasp. As Elena's body began to shift, a soft silver glow surrounded her. It wasn't harsh or blinding, but warm and comforting, like moonlight made solid. The light seemed to come from inside her, radiating outward until the entire clearing was bathed in its gentle radiance. When the transformation was complete, Elena stood in the center of the clearing as a wolf unlike any they had ever seen. Her fur was pure white with silver markings that seemed to shimmer and move like living starlight. She was larger than most female wolves, with an elegant build that spoke of both speed and strength. But it was her eyes that were truly stunning. They glowed with the same silver light that surrounded her body. The pack members dropped to their knees in respect, recognizing what they were seeing. Elder Thomas had tears streaming down his face, and even Kieran looked stunned. Elena looked down at herself, seeing her paws glowing with silver light. She felt more complete than she ever had in her life. Like she had finally found the missing piece of herself. "We are magnificent," her wolf said with deep satisfaction. Elena lifted her head and howled, a sound so pure and powerful that it echoed across the entire territory. Every wolf within miles stopped what they were doing to listen, instinctively recognizing the call of something ancient and sacred. When Elena shifted back to human form, the silver light faded slowly, leaving her standing in the clearing feeling changed forever. She looked around at the odd faces surrounding her and finally understood what everyone had been trying to tell her. She wasn't broken. She wasn't worthless. She was exactly what she was meant to be. But as the excitement of her first shift began to fade, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Her wolf's power felt vast and largely untapped, and she sensed that there were abilities she hadn't even begun to discover yet. More importantly, she had the distinct feeling that somewhere out there someone was watching and waiting, someone who wouldn't be happy to learn that the daughter of the Moonblessed had finally awakened. Elena's new life was just beginning, but she was about to discover that power always came with a price, and enemies she didn't even know existed were already making plans to destroy her. 3 weeks had passed since Elena's first transformation, and life at Shadow Ridge had settled into a routine that felt like the first real happiness Elena had ever known. Every morning, she trained with Elder Thomas to understand her abilities. Every afternoon, she worked with other pack members to learn fighting techniques and pack politics. And every evening, she spent time with Kieran, learning about her mother's time here and slowly building the bond between them. Elena's powers were growing stronger each day. She could now heal minor wounds with a touch, sense emotions from other pack members, and her silver light could calm aggressive wolves instantly. The pack had accepted her completely, treating her with the respect due to their alpha's mate and a moon-blessed wolf. But Elena's peaceful new life was about to be shattered. She was in the training yard, practicing her combat skills with Jake, one of Kieran's most trusted warriors, when a commotion at the main gate caught everyone's attention. A convoy of vehicles was approaching, flying the banner of the Crescent Moon Pack. Elena's stomach dropped. She recognized the lead car. It belonged to Beta Vincent. Kieran appeared at her side almost instantly, his expression grim. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. "Something about this doesn't feel right." The vehicles stopped in the main courtyard and Vincent stepped out along with Lydia and several other Crescent Moon warriors. But there were also wolves Elena didn't recognize. Larger, more aggressive-looking males wearing the colors of a pack she had never seen before. Vincent walked forward with the confidence of someone who believed he held all the cards. "Alpha Kieran," he called out formally. "I come bearing official business that concerns the wolf you took from our territory." Kieran's voice was ice-cold. "Elena is my mate and a member of this pack now. You have no business with her." "Actually," Vincent said with a cruel smile, "I believe I do." He pulled out an ornate scroll tied with red ribbon. "This is a legally binding betrothal contract, signed by Elena's mother before her death." Elena was promised to Alpha Dante of the Iron Fang Pack. Elena felt like she had been punched in the stomach. She looked at the scroll in Vincent's hands, then at the group of unfamiliar wolves. The largest one, a man with dark hair and cruel eyes, stepped forward. "I am Alpha Dante," he said, his voice rough and unpleasant, "and I have come to claim what was promised to me." Kieran moved protectively in front of Elena. "Elena is my mate. No contract can supersede the moon goddess's pairing." Vincent's smile widened. "Actually, it can. This contract was signed before Elena met you, which means it takes priority under ancient pack law. The betrothal is binding." Elena found her voice at last. "That's impossible. My mother would never have promised me to someone without telling me." Lydia stepped forward, practically glowing with malicious satisfaction. "Oh, but she did, dear sister. Mother signed this contract 3 months before she died. She needed Alpha Dante's protection because she was being threatened by, well, let's just say certain enemies had discovered her location." Elena's mind reeled. Her mother had been threatened by whom? And why would Isabella promise Elena to a stranger, instead of asking Kieran for help? "Show me the contract," Kieran demanded. Vincent handed over the scroll with obvious pleasure. Kieran unrolled it, his expression growing darker as he read. Elena watched his face, trying to understand what he was seeing. "This appears legitimate," Kieran said finally, though he sounded reluctant to admit it. "But Elena can challenge its validity if she chooses." "On what grounds?" Alpha Dante asked, moving closer to Elena with predatory interest. "The contract is clear. In exchange for my pack's protection of Isabella Matthews, her daughter Elena would be given to me as my mate when she came of age." Elena looked at Dante and felt sick. He was everything that Kieran wasn't, crude, aggressive, and looking at Elena like she was a prize to be won, rather than a person with her own choices. "I won't honor a contract I never agreed to," Elena said firmly. "My mother is dead. Whatever threats she was facing are gone now." "Actually," Vincent said, "the threats are very much still alive. In fact, they're the reason Alpha Dante and I have come to collect you. Your safety depends on honoring this contract." Kieran stepped closer to Vincent, his authority radiating outward like a physical force. "Explain, now." Vincent actually took a step backward before recovering himself. "There are certain parties who are very interested in Elena's bloodline. They've been searching for her since Isabella's death. The only way to keep Elena safe is for her to be under Alpha Dante's protection." "Elena is perfectly safe here," Kieran said dangerously. "Is she?" Alpha Dante asked with mock concern. "Your pack is strong, Alpha Kieran, but can you protect her from enemies you don't even know exist?" Enemies who have been planning for years to claim the moon-blessed bloodline for themselves? Elena felt a chill run down her spine. What enemies? Lydia laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Did you really think your awakening would go unnoticed? The moment you first shifted, every powerful pack leader in the region felt it. Word is spreading about the silver wolf who glows with moon magic. There are those who would kill to possess that power. Elder Thomas had appeared during the conversation, and Elena saw worry in his ancient eyes. This was news to him too, which meant the threat was real. Even if what you say is true, Kieran said, Elena can make her own choice about who protects her. She's not property to be traded according to contracts. Actually, Vincent said, pulling out another document. According to pack law, she is. Elena never officially rejected her birth pack's authority over her. Technically, she's still a member of Crescent Moon, which means I still have the right to make decisions about her future. Elena stared at Vincent in horror. You threw me out. You banished me. I said you weren't welcome, Vincent corrected smoothly. I never formally expelled you from the pack, which means this betrothal contract is still binding. Kieran looked like he wanted to tear Vincent apart with his bare hands. You're playing word games with my mate's life. I'm following the law, Vincent replied. If you want to challenge this, Alpha Kieran, you know what you have to do. Elena looked between them, sensing something she didn't understand. What does he mean? Kieran's jaw was clenched so tightly Elena could see the muscles jumping. Under pack law, if two alphas have a legitimate claim to the same mate, the matter can be settled by trial combat. A fight to the death, Alpha Dante added with obvious relish. Winner takes the girl. Elena felt rage building inside her, and she could feel her wolf responding to the emotion. How dare they talk about her like she was a prize in some barbaric contest? No, Elena said firmly. I won't be fought over like I'm some kind of trophy. This is ridiculous. I'm afraid you don't have a choice, Vincent said. The challenge has been issued. Alpha Kieran must either fight Alpha Dante for the right to keep you, or surrender you to honor the contract. Elena looked at Kieran, seeing the conflict in his silver eyes. She knew he would fight for her. He would probably win too, given his reputation. But she also knew that Alpha Dante looked like a vicious fighter, and the thought of Kieran being hurt because of her was unbearable. There has to be another way, Elena said desperately. Elder Thomas stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. Actually, there is an old provision in pack law that hasn't been used for centuries. If the contested mate is powerful enough, she can choose to fight for herself. Everyone turned to stare at the old man. Vincent looked alarmed for the first time since he had arrived. That law is ancient and obsolete, Vincent protested. But still valid, Elder Thomas said calmly. If Elena can prove she has the power to defend herself, she can choose her own champion, or be her own champion. Elena felt her wolf stirring with interest. We can fight our own battles, her inner voice said confidently. Elena, Kieran said urgently, you've only been training for 3 weeks. You're not ready for this kind of challenge. Elena looked at Kieran, then at Alpha Dante's smug face, then at Vincent's cruel satisfaction. She thought about her mother, who had apparently made this contract under some kind of threat. She thought about all the years she had been powerless, letting other people make decisions about her life. Those days were over. I choose to fight for myself, Elena announced. The courtyard erupted in shocked voices. Alpha Dante laughed as if she had told a joke. A 3-week-old wolf challenging an alpha with 20 years of experience? He said. This should be entertaining. Elena felt her silver light beginning to glow around her hands. When do we fight? Elder Thomas looked grave but proud. Traditionally, trial combat takes place at the next full moon. That gives you 5 days to prepare. 5 days, Elena repeated, looking at Kieran. Will you train me? Kieran's expression was torn between pride and terror. Elena, you don't understand what you're agreeing to. Trial combat isn't just a friendly sparring match. It's a fight to submission or death. Elena met his eyes steadily. Then we'd better make sure I win. As the Crescent Moon delegation left with promises to return for the trial, Elena felt a mixture of fear and determination settling in her chest. She had 5 days to become strong enough to defeat an experienced alpha. 5 days to prove that she was truly powerful enough to control her own destiny. But as she watched Alpha Dante's car disappear down the mountain road, The 5 days of training passed in a blur of exhaustion, determination, and growing confidence. Kieran worked with Elena from dawn until dusk, pushing her to discover abilities she didn't know she possessed. Elder Thomas taught her ancient fighting techniques that had been used by moon-blessed wolves centuries ago. The entire Shadow Ridge pack rallied around her, offering support and encouragement, but it was Elena's conversations with her wolf that proved most valuable. "You're still holding back," her inner voice told her during a particularly intense training session. "You're afraid of what you might do if you let me out completely." Elena paused in her practice, breathing hard. "What if I lose control? What if I hurt someone I don't mean to hurt? That's the difference between us and the ones who would use our power for evil," her wolf replied. "We choose control. We choose protection. We choose justice. Trust me, Elena. When the time comes, I won't let you down." The night before the trial, Elena couldn't sleep. She stood on her balcony looking out over the moonlit forest when Kieran joined her. "Having second thoughts?" he asked quietly. "Every minute," Elena admitted, "but I'm still going to do it. I have to." Kieran was quiet for a long moment. "There's something I haven't told you about trial combat," he said finally. Elena turned to look at him, seeing worry etched in every line of his face. "What?" "It's not just about fighting skills or strength. Trial combat has a way of revealing the truth about the people involved. Secrets have a way of coming out during the fight. Old lies get exposed." Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean that tomorrow, we're all going to learn things we didn't know before. About Vincent, about this contract, about why your mother really left Shadow Ridge, and some of those truths might be difficult to hear." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. "Kieran, what aren't you telling me?" Before he could answer, a howl echoed across the valley, the signal that the opposing pack had arrived. Tomorrow's trial was about to begin. Dawn came too quickly. Elena woke to find the Shadow Ridge territory transformed. A massive circle had been cleared in the main valley, surrounded by temporary seating that was already filling with wolves from packs across the region. Word of the trial had spread, and everyone wanted to witness the fight between an experienced alpha and the mysterious moon-blessed wolf. Elena, dressed in simple, fighting clothes or dark pants and a sleeveless top that would tear away easily if she needed to shift. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. A knock at her door revealed Dorothy with a breakfast tray. "Eat," the older woman said firmly. "You'll need your strength." As Elena forced herself to eat, Dorothy sat beside her with the expression of someone who had something important to say. "Your mother came to me the night before she left Shadow Ridge 15 years ago," Dorothy said quietly. Elena looked up in surprise. "What did she say?" "She was terrified, child. Not for herself, but for you. She said there were people who would use you, who would try to twist your power for their own purposes. She made me promise that if anything ever happened to her, I would make sure you learned the truth about who you really are." "What truth?" Dorothy reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver pendant that Elena recognized immediately. It was identical to the one her mother had always worn. "This belonged to your grandmother, and her grandmother before that. It's been passed down through the moon-blessed bloodline for generations. Your mother wanted you to have it when you were ready." Elena took the pendant with trembling fingers. The moment it touched her skin, she felt a surge of power unlike anything she had experienced before. Images flashed through her mind. Generations of silver wolves, ancient ceremonies, battles fought to protect the innocent. "There's more," Dorothy continued. "Your mother didn't just leave to protect you from enemies. She left because she discovered a conspiracy among the pack leaders to use moon-blessed wolves as weapons. Someone was gathering information about your bloodline, planning to capture you when you came of age." Elena's blood ran cold. "Who?" She never found out. But she suspected it went all the way to the Pack Council, the governing body that oversees all the territories. Before Elena could ask more questions, Kieran appeared in the doorway. "It's time," he said. The walk to the trial circle felt like the longest of Elena's life. Thousands of wolves surrounded the fighting area, their conversations dying away as Elena entered. She could feel their eyes on her, some curious, some skeptical, some openly hostile. Alpha Dante was already waiting in the center of the circle, looking confident and cruel. He had stripped to the waist, showing off muscles covered in battle scars. When he saw Elena, he laughed. "Still time to surrender, little wolf," he called out. "I promise to be gentle with you once you're mine." Elena felt her wolf snarl in response, and she had to work to keep her power contained. Not yet. She needed to wait for the right moment. Vincent stood as the official witness for Crescent Moon Pack, reading the formal charges and the terms of combat. As he spoke, Elena noticed something that made her blood freeze. Hanging around Vincent's neck was a pendant almost identical to hers, except where hers was silver. His was black iron. That's not a crescent moon symbol, her wolf observed. That's something much older and much darker. The realization hit Elena like a physical blow. Vincent wasn't just trying to enforce an old contract. He was part of whatever conspiracy her mother had discovered. He was working with the people who wanted to use Elena's power. The trial will begin at the sound of the horn, Vincent announced. The fight continues until one contestant submits or dies. Elena Matthews, do you accept these terms? Elena looked around the circle at all the faces watching her. She saw Kieran's worried expression, Elder Thomas's encouraging nod, Dorothy's proud smile. She thought about her mother, who had given up everything to protect her. She thought about all the years of being told she was worthless, when the truth was that she was so valuable that people were willing to kill for her power. I accept. Elena said clearly. The horn sounded alpha. Dante immediately shifted into his wolf form, a massive black creature with yellow eyes and teeth like knives. He was easily twice Elena's size, and he came at her with the speed and violence of a predator who had never lost a fight. But Elena didn't shift. Instead, she stood her ground, letting her silver light begin to glow around her body. When Dante leaped at her, Elena moved with supernatural speed, dodging his attack and placing her glowing hand on his flank as he passed. Dante howled in pain and surprise. Where Elena had touched him, his black fur was turning silver and he seemed to be moving more slowly. Moon magic, her wolf explained. We can neutralize aggression, turn violence into peace, but only if the heart behind the attack is pure. If someone fights for evil reasons. Elena looked at Dante, who was shaking his head as if trying to clear it. For a moment, his yellow eyes looked confused rather than cruel. But then Vincent's voice cut across the circle. Remember what we discussed, Dante. Remember what happens to your pack if you fail. Dante's eyes hardened again, and Elena realized that he was being forced into this fight just as much as she was. Someone was threatening his pack, using them as leverage to make him participate in this conspiracy. Elena made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. Instead of attacking Dante, she turned toward Vincent. You're not here for any betrothal contract, she called out, her voice carrying clearly across the silent crowd. You're here because someone wants my power and you're their agent. Vincent's face went pale. You don't know what you're talking about. Elena let her silver light grow brighter, and suddenly she could see things that had been hidden before. Dark energy surrounded Vincent like a shadow, and similar darkness clung to several other figures in the crowd. Wolves she didn't recognize, all wearing the same black iron pendants. I can see the corruption in you, Elena announced. All of you. You're not individual pack leaders making independent decisions. You're working together and you've been planning this for years. The crowd began murmuring as they noticed the dark figures Elena was pointing out. Several pack leaders looked shocked to discover that wolves they had trusted were part of some unknown conspiracy. Vincent realized his cover was blown. He raised his hand and the corrupted wolves throughout the crowd began moving toward the trial circle. Take her, Vincent shouted. The council wants her alive, but anyone who tries to protect her dies. Chaos erupted. The trial combat became a battlefield as Vincent's allies attacked and loyal pack members fought back. Elena found herself in the center of a war she had never seen coming, but she wasn't helpless anymore. Elena finally let her wolf out completely, shifting into her magnificent silver form just as attackers reached her. Her light exploded outward like a bomb, sending corrupted wolves flying backward. When they tried to get up, they found they could no longer access their wolf forms. Elena's power had severed their connection to their wolf spirits. The battle was fierce but brief. Elena's silver light gave strength to those fighting for justice while weakening those fighting for corruption. When the dust settled, Vincent and his allies were captured or fled and Alpha Dante was kneeling before Elena in submission. I'm sorry, Dante said, shifting back to human form. They threatened to destroy my entire pack if I didn't take you away from here. In the 3 days following the trial, Shadow Ridge became a fortress. Pack leaders from across the region arrived hourly, bringing reports of mysterious disappearances, corrupted officials, and strange attacks on moon-blessed descendants. Elena's public display of power had forced the hidden conspiracy into the open, and now everyone was scrambling to understand how deep the corruption went. Elena sat in Kieran's study, surrounded by maps, documents, and testimonies from Alpha Dante and other wolves who had been coerced into serving the mysterious council. The more she learned, the more horrified she became. "They've been planning this for 30 years, she said, looking up at Kieran as he paced behind his desk. "Ever since the last known moon-blessed wolf died during the Great Territory War." Elder Thomas looked up from the ancient book he was reading. "Not died," he corrected grimly. "Was murdered. I've been researching old records, and it appears that Magnus Steelclaw didn't die in battle as everyone believed. He was poisoned by someone he trusted." Elena felt sick. "Someone has been systematically eliminating my bloodline for decades." "Which explains why your mother was so terrified," Kieran said. "She must have discovered evidence of the murders and realized you would be next." A knock at the door interrupted their discussion. Dorothy entered, followed by Lydia of all people. Elena's half-sister looked terrible. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were dirty, and her eyes were red with tears. "She insisted on speaking with you," Dorothy said apologetically. "She says she has information about your mother's death." Elena felt her wolf stir with suspicion. After everything that had happened, trusting Lydia seemed like a terrible idea. But Kieran nodded for Dorothy to let her speak. "Elena," Lydia said, her voice shaking, "I need to tell you something about the night our mother died. Something I should have told you years ago." Elena's blood went cold. "What about that night?" Lydia collapsed into a chair, looking like she was about to fall apart completely. "Mother didn't die from illness. She was poisoned. And I'm the one who gave her the poison." The study went deadly quiet. Elena felt her silver light beginning to flicker around her hands as rage built inside her chest. "You killed our mother?" Elena's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried enough power to make the windows rattle. "No," Lydia said desperately. "I mean, yes, technically, but I didn't know what it was. I thought it was medicine." Kieran moved to stand behind Elena, ready to restrain her if necessary. "Explain quickly." Lydia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "About a week before Mother died, Vincent brought me a small bottle of liquid. He said Mother had been having trouble sleeping, and this was a special herbal remedy that would help her rest. He told me to put a few drops in her tea each night." Elena's rage was building to dangerous levels. "And you just did what he asked?" "Without questioning it." "He's my father," Lydia cried. "I trusted him. He said Mother was too proud to take medicine if she knew what it was, so I had to give it to her secretly." "I thought I was helping her." Elder Thomas had gone very still. "Lydia," he said carefully, "do you still have this bottle?" Lydia reached into her pocket and pulled out a small glass vial, about half empty. Elder Thomas took it gingerly, uncorked it, and sniffed the contents. His face went white. "This is Moonsbane," he said quietly. "It's a poison specifically designed to kill moon-blessed wolves. A few drops would cause symptoms that look like natural illness, but continued doses." He looked at Elena with profound sadness. "Your mother would have died slowly, painfully, as her connection to her wolf spirit was severed." Elena stood up so fast her chair fell backward. The silver light around her was growing brighter, and she could feel her wolf demanding justice. "Vincent made you murder our mother," Elena said, her voice echoing with otherworldly power. "And you've known this for months." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Lydia was sobbing now. "Because Vincent told me that if I ever said anything, he would tell everyone that I poisoned Mother on purpose. He said no one would believe I didn't know what it was. He said I would be executed for murdering a moon-blessed wolf." Kieran placed gentle hands on Elena's shoulders, trying to ground her. "Elena, I know you're angry, but Lydia was manipulated too. She was just a child when this happened." Elena wanted to argue, but she could see the genuine terror and regret in her half-sister's eyes. Lydia had been Vincent's tool, just like Alpha Dante had been forced to serve the conspiracy. "There's more," Lydia continued. "Vincent has been meeting with strange wolves for months. I overheard one of their conversations a few weeks ago. They were talking about something called the Harvest." Elder Thomas dropped the poison bottle, his face going ashen. "The Harvest? Are you certain that's what they said?" "Yes, what does it mean?" Elder Thomas sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 80 years. "The Harvest is an ancient ritual mentioned in the darkest texts about moon-blessed magic. If performed correctly, It supposedly allows someone to steal the power of a moon-blessed wolf and transfer it to themselves. Elena felt like ice water had been poured into her veins. They don't just want to use my power, they want to take it. But the ritual is supposed to be a myth, Kieran said. No one has ever successfully performed it. Because it requires very specific conditions, Elder Thomas explained grimly. The moon-blessed wolf must be weakened through betrayal and isolation. They must lose their connection to their pack, their family, their sense of self-worth. Only then can their power be harvested. Elena stared at him in growing horror. That's why Vincent threw me out of the pack at Mother's funeral. That's why he wanted me to feel completely alone and worthless. He was preparing me for this ritual. And when that didn't work, when Kieran claimed you and you found your strength, they moved to Plan B. Elder Thomas continued. The betrothal contract was meant to put you under Alpha Dante's control, where they could slowly break you down. Lydia spoke up again, her voice barely audible. Vincent left yesterday, but before he went, I heard him talking to someone on the phone. He said the harvest would happen tomorrow night during the new moon. Elena looked around the room at the faces of people she had come to trust. He can't perform the ritual without me there. So how is he planning to? She never finished the question because at that moment the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing the study in red light. Through the windows, Elena could see that the entire compound was dark. Someone had cut the power. Kieran was already moving toward the weapons cabinet. We're under attack. The sound of breaking glass came from somewhere in the house, followed by shouts and the distinctive howl of attacking wolves. But these weren't normal wolf sounds, they were distorted, twisted, like the wolves making them were in pain. Dorothy, take Lydia to the safe room, Kieran commanded. Elder Thomas, call for backup from the allied packs. Elena. But Elena was already shifting, her silver light illuminating the dark study like a beacon. Through the window she could see shapes moving in the courtyard. Wolves with the same dark corruption she had seen at the trial, but worse. These wolves looked sick, wrong, like something had been fundamentally twisted inside them. They're not fully wolf anymore, her inner voice observed. Someone has been experimenting with forced magic, trying to create artificial moon-blessed wolves. Elena shifted back to human form. They're not here to kill me, she realized. They're here to weaken me, to make me vulnerable for the ritual. As if summoned by her words, Vincent's voice echoed through the compound's intercom system. Somehow he had gained access to the communications. Elena. His voice was calm, almost conversational. I have something you want. Actually, several somethings. A new voice came through the speakers. Dorothy's, but strained with pain. Elena, don't listen to him. It's a trap. Elena's blood turned to ice. I have Dorothy, your beloved Elder Thomas, and about a dozen other pack members you've grown fond of. Vincent continued. They're all quite safe for now, but their continued health depends on your cooperation. Elena looked at Kieran, seeing her own horror reflected in his face. Somehow Vincent had infiltrated the compound and taken hostages while they were distracted by Lydia's confession. What do you want? Elena called out. Simple. You come with me willingly and your friends live. You fight me and they die one by one while you watch. You have 5 minutes to decide. Elena felt her world crashing down around her. This was exactly what Elder Thomas had warned her about. The ritual required her to be isolated and betrayed. By taking the people she cared about, Vincent was forcing her to choose between her own freedom and their lives. Elena, no, Kieran said firmly. We'll find another way. We'll rescue them. But Elena was already shaking her head. How many people are you willing to let die while we figure out another way? He has Dorothy, Kieran. He has Elder Thomas. I can't let them be hurt because of me. This is exactly what he wants, Kieran argued. If you go with him, he'll perform the ritual and take your power. Then he'll kill all of us anyway. Elena looked at her mate, memorizing his face. She had never told him she loved him, and now she might never get the chance. Maybe, she said quietly, but maybe I can find a way to stop him from the inside. My power is stronger than it was before. The ritual might not work the way he expects it to. 6 months had passed since the night Elena defeated Vincent and exposed the Council's conspiracy. In that time, the werewolf world had transformed in ways no one could have imagined. Pack leaders who had been working with the Council were removed from power. Corrupted wolves were healed and rehabilitated, and new alliances were formed based on cooperation rather than fear. But the biggest change of all was happening right here at Shadow Ridge, where Elena stood in the Great Hall preparing for the most important day of her life. "Hold still," Dorothy fussed, adjusting the silver circlet that rested on Elena's dark hair. "You can't be crowned looking like you've been running through the forest." Elena smiled at the older woman's familiar worrying. "I'm nervous enough without you making me worry about my appearance too." The circlet was a work of art, crafted by the finest metalworkers from 7 different packs. It was made of silver that seemed to glow with its own inner light, set with moonstones that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. But more than its beauty, the circlet represented something that hadn't existed in the werewolf world for over a century. A moon-blessed alpha who ruled not through fear or force, but through the consent and trust of her people. "You're not just being crowned as Kieran's mate," Dorothy reminded her. "You're being recognized as the alpha who will guide all the packs into a new age. That's worth being nervous about." Elena looked at herself in the mirror and hardly recognized the woman staring back at her. Gone was the uncertain, rejected girl who had stood at her mother's grave just months ago. In her place was someone who stood tall, who met challenges head-on, who had learned to see her own worth through the eyes of people who truly loved her. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," Elena called. To her surprise, Lydia entered wearing a beautiful blue dress and carrying a small wrapped package. In the months since Vincent's defeat, Elena's relationship with her half-sister had slowly transformed from hostility to something approaching real friendship. "I brought you something," Lydia said, setting the package on the dressing table, "something that belonged to our mother." Elena unwrapped the package carefully, revealing a leather-bound journal she had never seen before. The cover was worn with age, and when Elena opened it, she found page after page of her mother's handwriting. "Where did you find this?" Elena asked. "Hidden in Vincent's office after he was arrested," Lydia explained. "I think he stole it from Mother's things years ago. I've been reading it and—" "Elena, you need to know what's in there." Elena looked down at the open page, reading her mother's familiar handwriting. Elena turned 3 today. She's already showing signs of enhanced senses, though she doesn't realize it yet. I watch her play with the other children and see how naturally she takes care of anyone who's hurt or scared. She doesn't know she's healing them with her touch, doesn't understand that her presence calms the most aggressive wolves. She just knows that helping others makes her happy. I pray every day that I'm making the right choice by hiding her true nature from her. The Council's agents grow bolder each year, and I know they're getting closer to finding us. Part of me wonders if I should tell Elena who she really is, begin training her to defend herself. But she's just a child. She deserves to have a childhood, even if it means she'll be unprepared for what's coming. If something happens to me before Elena comes into her power, I hope Kieran will keep his promise to find her. She'll need guidance from someone who understands what it means to lead with both strength and compassion. More than that, she'll need to know that being different doesn't make her wrong. It makes her exactly what the world needs. Elena felt tears sliding down her cheeks as she read her mother's words. Even from beyond the grave, Isabella was still taking care of her, still making sure Elena understood how much she had been loved. "There are years of entries like that," Lydia said softly. "Mother wrote about you almost every day, about your kindness, your strength, your ability to see the good in people even when they couldn't see it in themselves. She knew you were destined for something amazing." Elena closed the journal and hugged it to her chest. "Thank you for bringing this to me." "There's something else," Lydia said. "I've been thinking about what I want to do now that Vincent is gone and the Council has been exposed. I want to work with you, Elena. I want to help build this new world you're creating." Elena looked at her half-sister in surprise. "Are you sure?" "It won't be easy. We're basically starting from scratch, trying to create new laws and new traditions that treat all wolves fairly." Lydia smiled, and for the first time, Elena saw genuine warmth in her expression. "I spent years being jealous of you for being different. It took me way too long to realize that different is exactly what the world needs right now." Before Elena could respond, another knock came at the door. This time it was Kieran, dressed in formal ceremonial robes that made him look every inch the powerful alpha he was. "It's time," he said simply. Elena took a deep breath, picked up the silver circlet, and followed Kieran toward the Great Hall. As they walked, he took her hand, giving her the strength she needed for what was about to happen. The great hall had been transformed for the coronation ceremony. Representatives from over 50 packs had gathered, along with human government officials who were finally being told the truth about the werewolf world. The old days of hiding in the shadows were over. Elena's rise to power had coincided with a decision by the pack leaders to reveal themselves to humanity, working together to create a world where both species could coexist peacefully. Elder Thomas stood at the front of the hall, holding an ancient book of laws and ceremonies, but these weren't the old laws that had governed through fear and domination. These were new laws that Elena had helped write, laws that protected the weak, honored different kinds of strength, and ensured that no wolf would ever be abandoned for being different. As Elena walked down the aisle, she saw faces that had become dear to her over the past months, Dorothy beaming with pride, Jake and the other Shadow Ridge warriors who had become her trusted advisors, Alpha Dante, who had become one of her strongest allies after being freed from the Council's control. Pack leaders who had initially been skeptical of a young, inexperienced Alpha but who had come to respect her wisdom and fairness, but it was the faces of the ordinary pack members that meant the most to Elena. Wolves, who had been rejected by their birth packs for being different, healers who had been undervalued because their skills weren't martial, young wolves who had been told they weren't strong enough or fast enough or fierce enough to matter, all of them looking at Elena with hope, because she represented proof that anyone could find their place in the world if they were given the chance. When Elena reached the front of the hall, Elder Thomas began the ceremony with words that had never been spoken before in werewolf history. We gather today not to crown a ruler who will command through fear, but to recognize a leader who has proven that true strength comes from lifting others up rather than tearing them down. Elena knelt before Elder Thomas, but she wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were on the crowd, on all the people who had put their faith in her vision of a better world. Elena Matthews, Elder Thomas continued, you have shown courage in the face of impossible odds. You have chosen compassion over vengeance, unity over division, justice over personal gain. By the power vested in me by the united packs of this territory, and with the blessing of the moon goddess herself, I name you Alpha of Alphas, protector of all wolves, guardian of the new age. As Elder Thomas placed the silver circlet on Elena's head, something magical happened. The moonstones in the circlet began to glow with their own inner light, and that light spread throughout the hall, touching every person present. For a moment, everyone in the room could feel what Elena felt, the deep, unbreakable connection between all living things, the love that made true leadership possible. When the light faded, Elena stood and faced the crowd. These were her people now, all of them, and she would spend her life making sure they knew they mattered. I accept this responsibility, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. Not because I am perfect, but because I know what it feels like to be rejected and dismissed. I promise that as long as I lead, no wolf will be abandoned for being different. No pack will be destroyed for being weak. No individual will be told they have no value. The hall erupted in cheers and howls of approval, but Elena held up her hand for silence because she wasn't finished. The council wanted to use power to control others, Elena continued, but real power isn't about making people obey you. Real power is about giving people the strength to become their best selves. That's what we're going to build together. A world where every wolf can discover their own unique gifts and use them to make life better for everyone. As the ceremony concluded and the celebration began, Elena found herself standing on the balcony overlooking the valley where she had first learned to shift. Kieran joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Any regrets? He asked quietly. Elena leaned back against his chest, feeling more at peace than she had ever thought possible. Only one. What's that? I wish my mother could see this. I wish she could know that all her sacrifices led to something beautiful.